The Blackbird of Chernobyl. On April 26, 1986, the world witnessed one of the most catastrophic nuclear disasters in history, the explosion of Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant in Ukraine. But in the months leading up to this disaster, a strange and eerie phenomenon was reported by the workers at Chernobyl, a mysterious, winged creature that has since become known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl. According to the residents of Pripyat and workers at the Chernobyl power plant, this creature was seen hovering ominously over the plant and occasionally perching on the large towers and construction areas. The sightings, which began in the weeks and months before the disaster, were marked by a sense of foreboding and dread, with many of those who encountered the creature reporting feelings of unease and fear. For some, the appearance of the blackbird was an omen, a warning of the impending disaster that would soon change their lives forever. The first sightings of the Blackbird of Chernobyl were reported in early 1986, just a few months before the reactor explosion. Workers at the plant began to notice a large, dark figure in the sky, resembling a bird, but much larger than any species known to the area. The creature was described as having a wingspan of at least 10 feet, with dark, leathery wings and piercing red eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. It was often seen circling the plant or perched on the massive cooling towers, its presence both mysterious and unsettling. As the sightings continued, reports of strange occurrences began to spread among the workers. Some claimed that the creature emitted a high-pitched screech that was both terrifying and unearthly. Others reported having vivid nightmares after seeing the blackbird, dreams filled with images of destruction, fire, and death. A sense of impending doom began to take hold among those who had encountered the creature, with many fearing that it was a sign of something terrible to come. The blackbird was not just a fleeting shadow or a figment of imagination. Its presence was felt deeply by those who saw it, leaving an indelible mark on their psyche. Some workers even reported receiving mysterious phone calls after their sightings, with a voice on the other end speaking in a language they could not understand, further heightening their sense of dread. As news of the explosion spread, those who had witnessed the blackbird in the weeks leading up to the disaster began to piece together the connection. For them, the creature had been a harbinger of doom, a warning that went unheeded until it was too late. The Blackbird of Chernobyl, once dismissed by skeptics as a mere myth or mass hallucination, was now seen as an omen that had foretold the catastrophe. The disaster itself had devastating consequences. The legend of the Blackbird of Chernobyl has endured in the decades since the disaster, becoming part of the mythology surrounding the event. For some, the creature is seen as a symbol of the tragedy, a supernatural entity that appears before major disasters as a warning or an omen. Similar creatures have been reported in other parts of the world, often associated with catastrophic events, leading some to believe that the blackbird is part of a broader phenomenon. Mysterious lights seen immediately above Chernobyl. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster in April 1986, stories emerged not only of radiation, heroic first responders, and evacuation, but also of something far stranger. Some witnesses have come forward over the years to report that, amid the chaos of the meltdown at Reactor 4, they observed mysterious unidentified flying objects hovering above the nuclear facility. These accounts have become the subject of great interest among researchers of unexplained aerial phenomena who point to similar sightings near missile silos and other high-security locations around the world. One of the most striking testimonies came from Mikhail Veritsky, an employee of the Radiation Control Department who was present during the disaster. According to his account, he and several others witnessed a large glowing object in the sky on the same day the reactor was compromised. The craft, described as a glowing sphere about 6 to 8 meters in diameter, appeared to hover motionless above the fourth reactor. From it extended 2 distinct crimson beams directed at the damaged structure below. The entire event, according to Veritsky, lasted for several minutes before the object silently vanished into the sky. What makes this story even more intriguing is what Veritsky claimed happened next. He said that shortly after the object appeared and released its beams of light, radiation levels near the reactor began to drop significantly, almost fourfold. This unexpected reduction in radiation levels was viewed by some researchers as more than just a coincidence. To those who study UFOs, This event has become one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that some unknown intelligence may be monitoring or even intervening in critical moments involving nuclear technology. The concept that UFOs take an interest in nuclear facilities is not unique to Chernobyl. Over the decades, similar claims have come from military personnel stationed at missile bases in the United States, the former Soviet Union, and elsewhere. In these accounts, unknown objects are reported to appear during weapons tests or nuclear alerts, often breaching secure airspace without being detected by traditional radar systems. Before fighter jets or reconnaissance teams can investigate, the objects vanish, leaving behind nothing but speculation and the unnerving impression of having been observed. In the case of Chernobyl, the presence of a UFO during one of the worst nuclear incidents in history has led some to wonder whether these entities were simply watching or actively intervening. If Veritsky's account is accurate, and the radiation levels were indeed reduced after the appearance of the craft, it raises profound questions. Was this an attempt to mitigate the disaster? Or could this have been a form of help from a more advanced intelligence, one that is silently aware of the potential dangers humanity faces from its own technology? While skeptics may argue these sightings are misidentifications or hallucinations brought on by stress, the consistency and context of these reports continue to fascinate those who search for answers. For now, the mystery remains suspended in time, hovering over the ruined walls of Reactor 4, much like the strange object said to have appeared there on that fateful day. Mysterious blue light seen above Reactor number 4. Dr. Jensine Andersson, a researcher and author with a deep interest in the intersection of nuclear history and unexplained aerial phenomena, has argued that there exists a compelling pattern connecting nuclear incidents and UFO sightings over the past several decades. According to her analysis, these strange occurrences are not isolated or random, but are part of a broader and more systematic pattern. In a detailed examination of 39 testimonies, Andersson uncovered a clear connection between significant nuclear events and mysterious unidentified objects appearing in the skies nearby. These testimonies, spanning from the 1940s to the 1990s, were drawn from credible sources, many of which were supported by declassified US government documents from agencies such as the FBI and CIA. These reports revealed a long-standing awareness within intelligence circles of UFO activity occurring in proximity to nuclear facilities, test sites, and power plants. In several of these accounts, military personnel described unidentified craft entering restricted airspace without triggering alarms or being intercepted. The objects, often described as disks, spheres, or glowing lights, would perform maneuvers well beyond the capabilities of known aircraft. One of the most striking examples highlighted by Andersson is the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. During one of the most devastating nuclear accidents in human history, as emergency teams scrambled to contain the explosion and fire at Reactor 4, multiple witnesses reported seeing an unidentified object hovering above the facility. This object, described by those present as a silent, glowing sphere, reportedly arrived during the peak of the crisis. According to the witnesses, the object remained motionless in the sky for approximately 3 minutes, during which it directed a beam of light at the burning reactor. After this brief but intense display, the object vanished just as suddenly as it had appeared. Witnesses also claimed that radiation levels at the site appeared to drop following the object's appearance. While such a claim is difficult to scientifically verify, the correlation between the presence of the UFO and a decrease in radiation added to the sense of mystery and speculation. To many observers, this raised the possibility that the object may not have simply been monitoring the incident, but perhaps intervening in some unknown way. Andersson believes this event stands out as one of the most compelling examples of unexplained aerial phenomena associated with a nuclear emergency. She emphasizes that such incidents are not limited to Chernobyl. Numerous other sightings have been reported near American and Russian nuclear weapons facilities, including missile silos and warhead storage sites. In some instances, these sightings were accompanied by inexplicable equipment malfunctions or sudden power disruptions, which further deepened the intrigue. Andersson's research suggests that these encounters are not coincidental and that they may reflect a long-standing interest by unknown intelligences in humanity's nuclear capabilities. While definitive conclusions remain elusive, Andresen's work invites a re-examination of what governments may have known for decades about the curious connection between nuclear technology and the unexplained presence of mysterious aerial craft. Mysterious encounters with mutated spiders within the exclusion zone. Within the shadowy depths of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, where time seems to have stopped in 1986, a chilling tale has begun to circulate among explorers and researchers. The story centers on a mysterious and terrifying creature said to inhabit one of the many decaying apartment blocks that still stand in the abandoned city of Pripyat. According to those who claim to have encountered it, this creature is a spider, yet unlike any spider known to science. It is said to be enormous, mutated, and disturbingly intelligent. The rumors suggest that the creature only emerges after sunset, stalking the abandoned corridors and stairwells of its building in search of prey. Some accounts tell of small animals disappearing without a trace in the area, while others describe unnerving sounds that echo through the night, like skittering limbs on concrete or the faint scratching of something massive brushing against broken furniture. Those who've been brave enough to enter the building have often emerged visibly shaken, claiming to have seen glimpses of large, multi-legged shadows or eyes reflecting strangely in the dark. The creature has reportedly been spotted in a particularly irradiated zone, where radiation levels spike dramatically more than in surrounding areas. These hotspots are believed to be the result of residual contamination embedded in the walls and soil, giving rise to theories that the spider's enormous size and aggressive behavior are the result of long-term exposure to radiation. While most wildlife in the zone has shown signs of minor mutations or adaptation, this creature appears to defy what many thought possible. Descriptions vary, but most witnesses claim the spider spans over 2 feet in diameter, with legs that stretch even farther. Its color is said to be dark, almost blending into the shadows, with a hardened, almost armor-like exoskeleton. What's most disturbing to some is its apparent awareness. Multiple visitors have shared eerily similar stories of feeling watched from the darkness or hearing sounds that seemed too coordinated to be random. Some have even claimed that the creature retreated when lights were shined on it, only to reappear moments later in a different part of the structure. Despite skepticism from scientific communities, the frequency of these stories has continued to grow, especially among so-called Chernobyl urban explorers who document their nighttime visits. Whether the creature truly exists or not, it has come to symbolize something deeper for many. In a place defined by catastrophe, secrecy, and the long-lasting consequences of human error, the story of the mutated spider serves as a reminder that nature often reacts in unpredictable ways. Perhaps the spider is just an exaggeration born of fear and folklore, or perhaps, in the still and radioactive silence of Pripyat, something ancient and altered truly does crawl. Either way, the building remains undisturbed by most, avoided not just because of radiation, but because of what may be waiting within. Mysterious entities seen around the exclusion zone. In the years since the Chernobyl disaster, the exclusion zone surrounding the former power plant has become a destination for researchers, explorers, and curious travelers drawn to the haunting silence of the abandoned city of Pripyat. Among the decaying buildings and overgrown streets, countless visitors have shared stories of strange experiences, many of which suggest something more than just the lingering effects of a nuclear accident. Some report seeing ghostly figures, unexplained shadows, and eerie movements in the periphery of their vision, prompting discussions that Chernobyl may not only be a site of historical tragedy, but also a place of paranormal activity. Witnesses have described seeing transparent figures wandering through buildings or standing silently in windows. These sightings often occur in the abandoned schools, hospitals, and apartment blocks that once housed thousands of residents. Some explorers claim that when entering certain structures, they are suddenly overcome with a sense of dread or heaviness, as if the environment itself is watching them. Others speak of hearing faint voices, footsteps, or even laughter in places where no other people are present. One particularly common phenomenon is the appearance of what are known as shadow people. These are dark, human-like forms that seem to move quickly out of the corners of the eye and vanish when looked at directly. In some accounts, these shadow figures appear to follow visitors or watch them from a distance. Some describe feeling as though they are being accompanied by an invisible presence throughout their time in the zone. Skeptics often attribute these experiences to psychological factors such as stress, heightened adrenaline, or the power of suggestion. The eerie, desolate setting of the exclusion zone, combined with knowledge of the tragedy that unfolded there, can certainly affect the human mind in unexpected ways. However, the consistency and volume of these reports have led some to consider the possibility that something supernatural may be occurring. Theories vary on why Chernobyl might be a focal point for paranormal activity. Some believe the intense emotional energy released during the evacuation and aftermath left a kind of spiritual imprint on the land. Others suggest that the radiation itself may be interacting with energy fields in unknown ways, creating phenomena that science cannot yet explain. There are even those who believe that certain souls may remain tethered to the site, unable or unwilling to move on due to the sudden and traumatic nature of the event. Whether these stories are the result of psychological reactions or genuine encounters with the unknown, they contribute to the lasting aura of mystery surrounding the Chernobyl exclusion zone. The combination of historical tragedy, environmental silence, and persistent reports of the unexplained makes it a location unlike any other. For many, the zone is not only a reminder of the past, but also a place where the boundary between the physical and the spiritual world feels thinner, an enduring enigma that continues to draw the curious and the brave. Former Chernobyl engineer reveals he witnessed a major nuclear leak at the plant 4 years before the 1986 disaster. In recent years, new revelations have surfaced regarding the infamous Chernobyl disaster, shedding light on events that occurred well before the catastrophic explosion in 1986. A former engineer named Nikolai Steinberg, who worked at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant during its construction and early operation, has come forward to share a disturbing account of a serious nuclear incident that allegedly occurred 4 years before the widely known tragedy. According to Steinberg, this earlier accident was kept hidden from both the public and many of the plant's own employees, illustrating the secrecy and control that characterized the Soviet Union's handling of sensitive information. Steinberg, who served as the head of turbines during the summer of 1982, was directly involved in the day-to-day technical operations at the plant. During a recent appearance on the UK documentary series The Chernobyl Disaster, he described how a routine exercise unexpectedly turned into a moment of crisis. While in his office, he heard an announcement about an incident at the second reactor unit. Curious and concerned, he left his office and observed something highly unusual: steam escaping from a ventilation pipe nearby. He recognized this as a troubling sign, indicating the presence of a major nuclear leak at Reactor 1. His account claims that despite the severity of the situation, the leadership at the plant never issued formal briefings to the staff. Steinberg expected that workers would be addressed immediately and that steps would be taken to analyze the failure. Instead, he and his team were left in uncertainty. He organized an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, only for it never to occur. By early morning, employees quietly left the premises without answers. According to Steinberg, this silence was not due to a lack of awareness, but rather a deliberate effort to suppress the event. He alleges that the KGB, which maintained a constant presence at the site, quickly acted to cover up the leak and control the narrative. This pattern of secrecy, Steinberg noted, was typical of the time. In the Soviet system, even critical safety issues were often suppressed to maintain the illusion of control and to avoid political embarrassment. Workers like Steinberg, despite their technical knowledge and first-hand observations, were never officially informed of what had taken place. No formal reports were filed, and no public acknowledgement was made. As a result, the incident quietly faded into obscurity, until Steinberg chose to speak out decades later. Dr. Natalia Chernyshova, a historian who studied declassified documents from the era, provided further insight into the methods of control exercised by the Soviet authorities. Following the 1982 event, she explained, the KGB likely focused on determining whether the accident was caused by negligence or possible sabotage. More importantly, they would have worked to suppress any rumors that could spread panic among the population. In her research into government records dating back to 1983, which were only declassified in 2017, Dr. Chernyshova found evidence of manipulated information and efforts to discredit individuals who tried to speak about the truth. One particularly revealing report showed that between January 1978 and December 1982, the Chernobyl station had suffered 27 accidents and 87 instances of equipment failure. Astonishingly, 5 of these accidents and 16 failures occurred during 1982 alone, the same year as Steinberg's alleged leak. Following that event, radiation levels reportedly spread across a 9-mile radius, yet residents of Pripyat were never informed of any danger. The decision to keep such events under wraps may have had long-term consequences, both for the safety of those living near the facility and for the workers tasked with maintaining it. Had the problems been acknowledged and thoroughly investigated, lessons might have been learned, and future disasters potentially avoided. Steinberg's testimony adds another layer to the complex story of Chernobyl, reminding the world that the disaster of 1986 may have been preceded by warning signs, ones that were tragically ignored or concealed. Fungi found in Chernobyl feeds on radiation. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, scientists have made a remarkable discovery that sheds new light on how nature adapts and even thrives under extreme conditions. A particular type of fungus, Cladosporium sphaerospermum, has been found in and around the Chernobyl exclusion zone, feeding on radiation through a unique process known as radiosynthesis. This process allows the fungus to convert harmful gamma radiation into chemical energy using melanin, the same pigment that gives skin its color. Originally identified in 1991, this organism drew scientific interest due to its unusual preference for highly radioactive environments. Over time, researchers began to realize that Cladosporium sphaerospermum was not only surviving in these hazardous zones, but was actively growing toward the most radioactive areas. Its unusual behavior led scientists to dig deeper into its biological mechanisms, uncovering its ability to use melanin in much the same way that plants use chlorophyll in photosynthesis, transforming a form of energy into sustenance. This discovery is significant not only because of what it reveals about the resilience of life, but also because of its potential future applications. Researchers are now exploring the possibility of using this fungus as a biological radiation shield, especially in space environments where exposure to cosmic radiation poses a major risk. The radiation levels aboard the International Space Station are considerably higher than those on Earth, presenting a constant challenge for astronaut safety. By applying the fungus as a protective layer, or by isolating and utilizing its melanin, scientists may be able to create lightweight, efficient radiation barriers for use in spacecraft and spacesuits. NASA scientists are particularly interested in the material's potential. Beyond spacecraft design, the melanin from this fungus could be refined and used to develop protective sunscreens or skin treatments for both astronauts and people on Earth. Since melanin naturally absorbs radiation, incorporating it into skincare products could provide enhanced defense against ultraviolet rays and other forms of radiation exposure. Furthermore, the fungus's ability to convert harmful radiation into usable energy opens new doors in the field of renewable energy. Though still in its early stages of research, the idea that low-level radiation could be harvested and converted through biological means is gaining traction. The implications are vast, not only for space exploration, but also for use in hazardous zones on Earth, such as nuclear sites or even medical facilities where radiation is routinely used. Cladosporium sphaerospermum represents a fascinating intersection of biology and technology. Its discovery in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, coupled with its impressive adaptive abilities, makes it a subject of intense study. As science continues to explore its properties, this humble fungus may become a crucial tool in the ongoing quest to protect human life in both terrestrial and extraterrestrial environments. Whether serving as a radiation shield, a component in advanced materials, or a future source of biological energy, its story is one of nature's incredible ability to adapt, survive, and ultimately offer solutions to modern challenges. Drone survey of Chernobyl's Red Forest reveals radioactive hotspots. More than 3 decades after the catastrophic Chernobyl disaster, the legacy of that fateful event continues to cast a long and unsettling shadow. The 1986 nuclear explosion released a staggering amount of radiation, nearly 400 times more than the Hiroshima atomic bomb, and its aftermath still reverberates across the region. Today, with the aid of cutting-edge drone technology, scientists are uncovering fresh insights into the ongoing effects of the disaster, revealing that some parts of the exclusion zone remain far more dangerous than previously understood. A team of researchers from the UK National Centre for Nuclear Robotics recently embarked on a mission to survey the vast 1,000 square mile exclusion zone. Armed with a state-of-the-art drone mapping system, they employed a technique known as light detection and ranging to create precise three-dimensional maps of the terrain, but the mission was not limited to visual data alone. The team also utilized gamma-ray sensors mounted to the drones to measure radiation levels throughout the area. By methodically scanning each section of the zone, the researchers were able to generate a detailed radiation map, one that revealed a number of unexpected and concerning findings. Chief among these discoveries was the persistence of highly radioactive hotspots within the Red Forest, an area located just a third of a mile from the original reactor site. This part of the forest earned its name due to the reddish hue the trees turned after absorbing massive doses of radiation at the time of the explosion. Although it was always known to be heavily contaminated, the intensity of the radiation still present there shocked the team. The presence of long-lived radioisotopes means that the contamination will continue to pose serious health risks for the foreseeable future. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of this discovery is the fact that these hotspots had gone undetected for so long. Prior to the drone-based mapping project, radiation levels in the zone were assumed to be declining at a steady pace. In recent years, this assumption led to increasing numbers of tourists being granted access to the area. Since 2011, more than 70,000 visitors per year have toured the exclusion zone, many unknowingly venturing close to areas with dangerously high radiation concentrations. The revelation that some of these locations remained extremely hazardous underscores a critical gap in monitoring and risk assessment. This situation raises broader questions about how much we truly understand about long-term nuclear contamination. The use of advanced technology such as drones and radiation mapping systems is shedding new light on forgotten or overlooked areas. Yet, the fact that such significant radiation hotspots could exist unnoticed for decades emphasizes the need for continued vigilance. The assumption that time alone would neutralize the dangers has proven to be dangerously optimistic. Ultimately, the findings from the Red Forest serve as a sobering reminder. The consequences of nuclear disasters are not merely historical footnotes, they are living, evolving realities. Ongoing research, investment in technology, and international cooperation are essential to ensure that the full scope of such incidents is understood and properly managed. Chernobyl wolves could be spreading mutations in Europe. The 1986 Chernobyl disaster remains one of the most devastating nuclear incidents in human history. Caused during a safety test gone wrong, it is one of only 2 events ever to receive a level 7, the highest possible ranking, on the International Nuclear Event Scale. While the explosion and the immediate response were widely documented and publicized, the long-term consequences, particularly those affecting the environment and wildlife, continue to unfold with often unsettling implications. One such concern emerging in recent years revolves around the wolves of the Chernobyl exclusion zone and the possibility that they may be spreading mutations beyond the area. In the initial aftermath of the Chernobyl reactor explosion, the world watched in horror. The blast released massive amounts of radiation, affecting hundreds of workers, some of whom became seriously ill, with others impacted long after the fact. However, measuring the true human toll has remained a complicated task due to the delayed effects of radiation exposure and the difficulty of tracing all illnesses back to the disaster. Although a structure known as the sarcophagus was built to contain the radiation and a large swath of land around the site was sealed off and labelled the Chernobyl exclusion zone, the long-term impact on nature and wildlife was less easily contained. Unlike humans, animals do not heed boundaries. Wolves, in particular, roam far and wide, and the area surrounding Chernobyl has become an unlikely refuge for wildlife. In the absence of human presence, populations of animals such as wild boar, moose, and European grey wolves have thrived in the dense forests of northern Ukraine. Yet, with the potential lingering effects of radiation, scientists have grown increasingly concerned about the possibility that animals might be affected at a genetic level, and even more troubling, that they could carry these changes beyond the exclusion zone. In a study published in 2018, researchers equipped 13 wolves with tracking collars capable of monitoring radiation levels and movement. While many of the wolves remained within the known boundaries of radioactive contamination, one particular wolf traveled over 250 miles and was eventually recorded in Russia. This marked the first recorded case of such a long-distance migration from inside the exclusion zone to the wider European landscape. Jim Beasley, a wildlife ecologist at the University of Georgia and one of the researchers involved in the study, emphasized that while long-distance migration by young male wolves is expected behavior during mating periods, the data confirms that significant and stable populations do exist within the exclusion zone. With a robust wolf population established, it is natural for younger animals to seek new territory, thereby expanding their reach, and potentially the reach of any genetic or environmental alterations caused by radiation. Although this study does not definitively prove that these wolves are spreading mutations, it raises pressing questions. Previous research has shown that radiation exposure in smaller animals such as birds, insects, and rodents has led to a variety of physical mutations. These include smaller brain sizes, cataracts, tumors, and developmental abnormalities. While the same outcomes have not been conclusively observed in larger mammals like wolves, the potential remains a topic of interest and concern. Michael Byrne, an expert in animal movement from the University of Missouri, pointed out that migration is a natural response when an ecosystem reaches capacity. However, what makes the Chernobyl scenario so unique is that this migration could be carrying unknown biological risks across borders. With the ability to travel through forests and across national boundaries, the possibility that wolves could be spreading radiation-induced mutations, even if not radiation itself, poses a complex ecological challenge. It's important to consider that the very fact a wolf managed to travel so far might indicate it was not heavily burdened by the effects of radiation. Mutations that significantly affect mobility, sensory perception, or physical strength would naturally limit an animal's capacity to undertake such a journey. Still, the presence of such wolves demonstrates that the exclusion zone is not an isolated bubble. Wildlife is capable of extending the reach of that space in ways not previously anticipated. Ultimately, this situation highlights just how little is truly known about the long-term environmental impact of nuclear disasters. More research is needed to fully understand how radiation exposure may affect genetic structures across generations and whether those changes are being transferred beyond the original site of the accident. The presence of thriving yet potentially affected animal populations in Chernobyl is a paradox, life enduring in a place once thought to be lifeless but possibly changed in unknown ways. As scientists continue to study this region, the goal remains to gain insight not only into the risks posed to wildlife, but to ecosystems at large. Understanding the movement and genetic health of creatures like the Chernobyl wolves may provide crucial information that helps shape future environmental policy, nuclear safety regulations, and conservation strategies. The Chernobyl disaster may be decades old, but its consequences are still very much in motion. Chernobyl will be uninhabitable for at least 3,000 years. More than 30 years have passed since the explosion at Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, yet the impact of that single catastrophic event continues to echo through time. The city of Pripyat, once a thriving hub for plant workers and their families, remains frozen in silence, a modern ruin swallowed by nature and radioactive contamination. Experts estimate that the region will remain uninhabitable for at least 3,000 years, with some saying that the true number may be significantly longer. According to a 2016 Greenpeace report, the nuclear disaster caused profound and irreversible environmental damage. While some radioactive particles break down relatively quickly, others, like cesium-137 and strontium-90, have half-lives of around 30 years and continue to contaminate soil, water, and plants across a wide radius. Even more concerning are elements like plutonium-239, which has a half-life of over 24,000 years. These radioactive materials still linger across the exclusion zone and beyond, creating risks that cannot be seen, smelled, or felt, yet remain dangerously real. Some voices challenge these assessments and suggest that it may be safe to return, but the scientific community largely disagrees. The Chernobyl accident serves as a powerful reminder of the potential risks involved with nuclear energy. Following the explosion and fire in 1986, roughly 220,000 people were relocated from their homes. In Belarus and Ukraine, tens of thousands of square kilometers of farmland and forest were rendered unusable. The damage wasn't just physical, it left deep psychological and social wounds that remain today. Sergei Parashin, an engineer who worked at the plant from 1977 until the day of the disaster, has reflected on the tragedy with a mix of sorrow and humility. He described the atmosphere among the engineers at the time as overly confident. They believed nothing could go wrong. That belief was shattered in an instant, and the consequences revealed the limits of human control over nuclear technology. Today's cleanup operations continue, but even with modern advancements, the task remains monumental. Ihor Gromotkin, who once served as the director of the Chernobyl plant, has warned that the 3,000-year estimate may actually be optimistic. In his view, the area closest to the reactor might remain uninhabitable for up to 20,000 years. These longer estimates reflect the difficulty of removing or containing the deep-seated radioactive elements within the environment. Though outer areas of the exclusion zone show reduced radiation levels, hotspots persist and may do so for millennia. Despite these warnings, some residents have made the choice to return. These self-settlers, mostly elderly, have moved back into homes that were evacuated decades ago. One such resident is Alexandra Lozbin, who returned with her husband in 2010 to a village just 7 kilometers from the Chernobyl plant. Her husband had always wanted to return to his homeland. Even when the area was sealed off, he made his way back through the barbed wire. Their decision, while personal, carries symbolic weight. It speaks to a human desire to reconnect with roots, to reclaim identity, and to defy isolation. Alexandra believes others will return one day too. She hopes her children and grandchildren will come to understand the life that once flourished there, despite the silence that now defines the land. Her story is one of resilience, even if it exists in the shadow of risk. Chernobyl is more than just a symbol of a failed reactor. It represents the enduring consequences of technological overreach and the delicate balance between progress and responsibility. The region's long path to recovery reminds the world that certain mistakes leave scars not just for years or decades, but for generations, perhaps even longer than humanity can currently imagine.